This image right here went viral a few years ago. I remember seeing it, and I saw this pop up in my feed again recently, and I think it perfectly encapsulates the difference between men and women, what exactly is wrong with American society today, and the predictable ways in which women and men will act and behave with each other based off of those circumstances. And so, what I want to ask the question here is that, are American women even worth dating anymore? And when you first hear that, you might think like, oh, this guy's bitter, resentful. Maybe he's been rejected his entire life by women. No, I've had a lot of success with American women, especially because I mostly have lived in the US most of my life. That's not the issue. And I'm actually not going to be like most manosphere channels where I like maybe you look at the title and you think this guy's just going to blame women. I'm not doing that. I actually think that the way in which women are acting is very, very predictable based off of what I think for is the nature of most females, most women. Um, so yes, I am going to be talking about the differences between men and women here, but I think it's actually going to be something that's helpful for women and helping to understand them and helping men to be less resentful toward them rather than thinking that we're like dehumanizing them or whatever by saying that they're not the same as men. Okay. So just to preface with that, because sometimes the YouTube algorithm suggests that this channel is primarily for men, but sometimes it pushes it out toward women too, which I think is good. But anyway, let me present this thing again and explain in detail why I think this actually explains everything. All right. So let's break it down. So it's Brittany Venti, who's pretty famous YouTuber now. I guess she used to be called Critical Hit Brit, whatever. She says men really think it's okay to live like this, and then you see a. I know it's kind of hard to see with the rest of Instagram. I apologize, but basically the picture is you have this really nice ocean view and a nice apartment, but there's nothing in it, right? You have a TV, and then you have one of those like lawn chair, portable lawn chair type things. And then the response is women hate how little it takes for us to be happy. I really think that this exemplifies the difference between men and women. All right. So I talked about this in previous videos. I always take everything from a Nietzschean lens. So Nietzsche believes that a great man is somebody who is motivated by the overcoming instinct to try to become better, seek out greatness, seek out conflict to become stronger. And I think that's a very masculine worldview. Something that he admonishes in men, especially, is the self preservative instinct, the instinct to just want to survive and to live well and be comfortable. It's the best way to it's capture that idea is the idea of the last man. The last man he talks about in the prologue of Thus Spoke Zarathustra as sort of like his nightmare scenario for the future, where somebody is just comfortable with living a comfortable life, just barely getting by, not trying to take risks, right? And they actually can't even like dream about the future anymore. They just live completely in the present and don't want to feel any pain, right? And that is the self-preservative instinct. I think where Nietzsche misses the mark a little bit is that he doesn't see the utility in the self-preservative instinct. And I think the self-preservative instinct is much more common and natural in women. And the for societies to function properly, or even as communities, there should be some people who are constantly striving for greatness, overcoming, looking for conflict to become stronger, to overcome, and then people who are striving for wellness, the self-preservative instinct, who just want to live life as it is, like live well, right? Live in the present, live in the moment. Um, And so, again, mostly this is men, the overcoming instinct. Mostly this is women, the self-preservative instinct, the wellness instinct. And this isn't just my opinion. You look at historically across so many societies, across all different periods of time that never had interactions with one another. Those gender roles, typically, that's what each gender respectively ended up filling those roles in, right? The men were the warriors, the ones who were coming up with the ideas, innovating, inventing. The women were the ones that took care of the household, that took care of the kids, who would tend to the wounds of the warriors and whatnot, you know? And So now we sort of are living in this world now where, because things are much more difficult economically and financially, women almost have to they're almost forced to take on a little bit more of that masculine role just based off of the framing that I talked about there. But that image that I just pulled up, I'll pull it up again because I have another video I want to show you that's going to be really illuminating, I think. Um, so when we look at this, right, why would men be happy with this? Well, if clearly whoever's apartment this is, he's living in a very nice place, a very nice location. So that apartment probably costs, thousands of dollars a month, maybe up to 10,000, who knows? But yet he has no material possessions. Well, why is that? How could somebody work so hard to live like that? For women, it doesn't make any sense, right? For most women. Um, but the reason that he can is because if he is driven by that overcoming instinct, then what his main purpose, the thing that he's really trying to do, is try to become better, become stronger, to conquer and fight, right? It's that inner warrior spirit within him, that sort of masculine, violent spirit that people, even a lot of men, try to pretend isn't there, right? It's an okay thing to have. You need to transmute that towards something good and productive, or else you might end up being a violent person and cause crimes. But that same exact energy that criminals have to do what they do, productive men have as well. They just put it into healthier things like running a business or, trying to do some great creative endeavor, sports, right? And so for them, because they're so focused on the future, again, that overcoming instinct, like the things in the present, such as, oh, having this really decked out, nice place. Uh, he lives in a nice place, but the interior is not that great. That's not going to be on his mind. That is something in the mind of somebody who lives in the present, which again is a great thing, right? Because if you look so much to the future, like you can't even like you can't. What's the saying? That trite saying is like you can't stop and smell the roses, right? What women do is help men stop and smell the roses and actually enjoy life and not destroy themselves with their own ambition. If men are the accelerator with the overcoming instinct, then women are the brake, you know, not letting them swerve around a turn at 100 miles an hour and flip the car over. Right. And so it's funny because when this meme came out, I remember this very clearly, very vividly, I should say, because this is a few years ago. I still remember it. Women were very much like, yeah, how could, why do my boyfriend maybe lives like this, or my brother? I don't understand, right? And then men totally get it. That's a good example of the overcoming instinct versus the preservative instinct. So to come back to the question of this video or the theme, are American women even worth dating anymore? Well, if we accept my premise that women are more drawn, or in general, the female nature, if you want to call it that, is more about wellness and the self-preservative instinct, and male nature, masculinity, is more about the overcoming instinct. Well, what's going to happen in a modern society where the material circumstances are so bad that women cannot have that wellness and can't feel safe and secure, and then men also are thwarted and not being able to go for the things that they want because things are so tough now, right? They're so difficult. It's like it's tough for people to even begin. Like real estate, which I'll bring up in a second, like you know, the actual facts about modern real estate. Um, it's impossible to buy a home now, and it's very normal for women to want a home. It's very normal for women to want to have the man be able to provide. It's not normal to for them to want to do that. They should have the freedom to do that. Don't get me wrong, but most women, if they're honest with themselves, they do want to have their man sort of provide, and then they have the family and the kids, even if it's not currently in what they're going with in their lives. In the future, typically what they want is the man to provide so that they can birth children and take care of them, right? All of that stuff costs money. It costs a lot of money. And not only that, if I strongly believe opposites attract, right? So if you have more of that self-preservative wellness instinct, naturally you're going to be attracted to somebody who has more of that greatness instinct and overcoming and trying to achieve, which typically is more of the masculine role. Well, when these guys aren't able to do that anymore, then, and because it's become so difficult that you can't even compete, and then the people up top like pull the rug out underneath everybody, and take all of it for themselves. Well, they get demoralized, they get depressed, and they don't have that instinct anymore. So then these women, naturally, they're not going to be attracted to these types of guys. Plus, sometimes their logical mind might start thinking and be like, hey, I have a biological time clock. I want to have kids one day. I can't date some, broke dude, right? Even if I enjoy being around him or whatever. And so one or two things happen. Either they start to work a lot more themselves. Whereas, like, my grandparents, for example, my grandparents got married when they were like 20. There's a joke. I remember they told me when they were like 21, all their friends were married already. And they're like, how are you guys not married yet? You're so old already. You're 21 years old. That's not a thing nowadays, right? So anyway, these women now have to also either work themselves, or they try to find men, older men, who are accomplishing these things. They're going to be more attracted to them because they have the self-overcoming instinct. What they might lack in looks that fade as you age, they more than make up for in where they're going, right? Their personality and et cetera, et cetera. But it's also, so the emotional part is handled for the women here, but also the sort of logical part of like, what is the future of us going to look like, right? So that's why women are statistically dating older men more than they were in the past, And so, look, most guys, most manosphere guys or whatever, they'll be like, these women, blah, blah. No, like the same way that you should have, I want to say you should have sympathy, but you should understand, I should say, you should understand how in big populations, when you have a large sample size of a certain demographic of people, things start to become more predictable. In terms of the impact of the society and how that collective group is going to act and behave. So the manosphere is very sympathetic toward guys who are struggling in their dating lives, right? Because of all of these different circumstances that are going on, a lot of guys are struggling. In the same exact way, those same circumstances make a lot of women act and behave in a certain way. You can't blame them for not being attracted to dudes that they're naturally supposed to be attracted to, right? According to what the manosphere especially talks about of like female nature and whatnot. Based off of the female nature y'all talk about, which a lot of it is true, it makes sense that they're not going to be attracted to most of the guys who complain that the women are different nowadays, right? However, here's where I'm different from most people. I'm trying to say that it's not both of their faults, not inherently. You take it on an individual to individual basis, it is your fault. You have to act as if it's your fault so you can change something about it. But you don't want to ignore the outside circumstances of what's causing this to happen. All right. So speaking of, let's pull up another video really quickly. And I found this on an Instagram reel. I try to avoid TikTok because TikTok is cancer. But basically, Instagram has become like re-uploads of TikTok. But there's some good things here and there. So let me play this video here. This is by a guy named FM Smith 319. I don't know much about him. It seems like a very well put together, smart guy. So let's hear what he has to say.
Struggling today, it is the effing housing prices and rent prices. This is the problem that needs to be solved. In 1980, the house was $47,000. To qualify was $18,000 in income, and the median household income was $21,000, and that makes sense. Or you could rent for 14%. Let's rapid fire through these years to get to today. 1990 was $78K, $21K to qualify, $38K median household income, 17% to rent. 2000, $105, $28,000 to qualify, $49,000 median household income, 16%. Now 2010, $180,000, $30,000 to qualify, $50,000 median household income. 2019, $260,000 for the house, $40K to qualify, and $68,000 was the median household income. Yet it was still 25% to rent. But let's look at today. Today is $430,000 for the home. What do you need to qualify? $110,000, and the median household income is $81,000. What? And this 110, by the way, is with zero college loans, car payments, or credit cards, and a 20% down payment, which most people don't have 80 grand laying around. They're most likely going to put 3% down, and you need about $150,000. And guess what the rent is if you can't afford this, which most can't? 30% for the median household. But yet the single person who's not looking to buy a house right now, who's renting, they're spending 40%. Why
Okay. So, yeah, that's ridiculous. How many people do you know personally that make 120 grand a year? That's a young guy. Because I think it's very normal. A lot of people bring up, I don't know if it's a YouTube comment or a video that I saw, but somebody brought up how back in the 80s and 90s, Homer Simpson was viewed as like this loser dad who worked a dead end low paying job at a power plant. And yet he still had an entire house, then he could feed 3 kids, and he was the sole breadwinner. That was the norm back then, right? And you could see that with what he just laid out there in those stats. And but now it's impossible to do that. It's unless you don't just have to be making 6 figures, man. You have to be making like 6 figures is 100 grand. That's probably what most people say. You make $100,000, people are like, oh, it's 6 figures, even though technically 900 grand is also 6 figures. Two very different things. But anyway, you need to be making like 120 grand just to qualify, like you said, and that's assuming that you could put a 10% down payment on. I think it's at 20% maybe, which is a lot of money most people don't have. So instead, it actually ends up being more like, you need to have 130 or 140 grand to even qualify, right? That's assuming you don't have any student debt, you don't have any credit card, exorbitant credit card debt, you have good credit history, etc. All the stars have to align, right? And even if you're not doing that, what ends up happening because of the higher housing prices, you end up having to pay much more of a percent of your income in rent, right? And so if women have that self-preservative wellness instinct, which I think is a great thing and very necessary and normal, especially if you want to have kids, raise a family, have a healthy society, how are they supposed to get that? How are they supposed to get that when from people their age? Of course, it makes sense they're going to go after older guys, or they're going to have like a split income where both couples are working together, or both are working. And then and the number one thing that couples fight about, fortunately, I saw this with my parents who are divorced, by the way, is financial problems, right? So you're going to run into a lot of those financial problems when both of you are working super hard. You want to build a future together, but it's tough for you to do because you need to. You can't have both people striving for greatness and overcoming everything, right? And then not have that break. This is why people burn out. And again, when I make these descriptions of what I believe female nature to be based off of a historical analysis and also scientific analysis as well, but mostly historical, because I think science is it can be a very corrupted field, especially psychology. I'm not doing this to like use proof as to why women suck, why modern women are XYZ. I'm doing this to try to help you, to help you because I want women to succeed. I want women to be happy. I want men to be happy too. I want them to be fulfilled. I want them to do great because when you guys do great, you're happy to be around. I'm a very sensitive empath, like an empath or whatever. So when there's bad energy around me, I start to feel bad, right? I want people to feel good. Sue me, you know? But like, I know for a lot of women, they could think that that's like demeaning or whatever for me to be like, oh, you guys don't want to strive for greatness the same way men do. Well, how do you explain then the first picture? If you agree with the first picture, and I feel like I made a solid point as to how that encapsulates how men and women are, and unofficially there's a pretty big sample size because I remember, I don't know if sample size is the right word, but there's a lot of evidence for it, I should say, where there's tons of women who agreed with that post and tons of men who understood why the guy lived that way and they thought it was dope, right? And that's not the only example. All the historical examples that I've always talked about on this channel as well. It's to try to help. And so when I say are American women even worth dating anymore, I don't say that with contempt. I say that with sympathy and sorrow for American women. Like it sucks that they're put in a position where they can't feel happy, they can't feel normal according to what feels most natural to most of them. And they have to start making these compromises where otherwise they wouldn't have to do that stuff like back when the economy was much better in the boomer years in the 50s and 60s, where they could be attracted to and eventually marry and have kids with a guy that's around their age that they're super attracted to, they really have a connection with, and they don't have to sit there worrying and wondering if they could pay their bills or feed their kids. So again, this channel is targeted toward men, so hence the title. So I can't tell you what you should do as a woman, but I can tell you what you should do as a man. All right. What you should do as a man is freaking get the hell out of the US. I love the US. I do. Born and raised here. I'm a true, but I love guns. I love, I love freedom. I love, I'm a true American. All right. And because I'm a true American and the values and ideals that supposedly this country has no longer is there anymore, the idea that the common man can raise himself up through through his own ambition and become a higher class great person and build a life for himself, that's what America's supposed to be. You can't do that anymore here. So what is there left to defend? What is there left to be here for? This is why I've lived abroad for the past 4 years. Luckily, I was able to sort of look at the writing on the wall pretty early, and I was able to leave. And I still come back here sometimes to visit family. I ran an event in Montana a few months ago, but I'm about to go back. Actually, I'm going back tonight at the filming of this video. And so my YouTube channel, and you'll see this soon, I'm going to be highlighting what a life abroad looks like. I live in Asia. I live in Vietnam, more specifically, where you see a lot more freedom. Very ironic, right? Vietnam, a communist country that America had a war with. You would think that it's like less free. It's ironic, it's actually way more free than it is in the US, especially if you are an expat. That's how bad the US is. Most people don't have that perspective because they've never traveled the world. They don't understand how much better life can be and how much they're getting screwed over here. And how it makes sense that when people are getting screwed by their government, by corporations, by whoever, by the older generation, it makes sense that predictably they're going to start to act in not the best way. I mean, if somebody is just agitating you constantly, or let's say like some kid's being bullied, and then he's just a total mess, and he starts blaming the world and getting all nihilistic, like, do you blame the kid or do you blame the bully or the people that are causing that kid to, right? I think when we become adults, we start to just think, oh, I'm an adult now. I am, like, it's like adults are just grown up children, man. They just are. I'm not infantilizing you or anything, but it's good to look at yourself and others that way so that you can actually like be more realistic about how people are. This idea and this obsession with strength, which is a greatness minded thing, by the way. So it's very natural for men, especially to have. It can be very destructive sometimes because it's more actually, funny enough, a lot of times it's actually rooted in insecurity and weakness because you are afraid of the idea of you not having control. And therefore, in order to cope with that fear, you end up thinking that you're some Giga Chad superhero that can handle that. I hope this video makes sense. I want to reiterate, I don't think American women are bad inherently. I do think they're corrupted, I guess, but I think also men are corrupted in the US. But women in general are acting very predictably based off of what I believe most of their natural temperaments to be. And same with men. And I'm not going to sit here and act like I have a solution. The only solution that I have, especially a societal solution, but I do have a solution for individual, whoever's watching this, get the hell out of the US. I know it's tough to do. I know it's tough to start a business online, work remotely, whatever. Just go on vacation somewhere first. That's how I did it. I went on vacation to Thailand first in 2018 to see how I like it. Then I started work really hard on my business to convert it fully online and then make a full-time living off of it. And then I went and did it. But first, you need to have that perspective, right? So the key message to this is go travel. And another thing too, let's talk about the women when you're traveling, because I know the passport bro thing is like a popular topic nowadays. I think it's really lame if you just go overseas and just get laid because you can't get laid in the US. But I don't think it's lame for you to try to go to these places to find a wife, to genuinely find like a relationship. I think that's fine. I don't think that should be your only motivation. But when you move to a place and you get a whole new social circle, a whole new life, what comes with that is romance, right? I mean, that's fine. And I think with a lot of these countries, the there's less of an expectation of women to take on that greatness, self-overcoming role of trying to strive for achievement. And in my experience, those women tend to be much more happier. I've traveled a lot. Okay. So let me just put it that way. Because they're more allowed to be, dare I say, in their nature. So, yeah. Those are my thoughts. Let me know what you think in the comment section. I could see this video potentially being pretty contentious. Just keep in mind, I think I have the best intentions in mind. I try to, at least. Anyway, thanks for watching. See you next video. Goodbye.